Have you ever asked yourself why a man once strong, fearless, standing tall against the world ends up sitting in his car right outside his own home, too afraid to walk in? Why a man who once laughed at storms now trembles in silence before the soft face and empathetic eyes of a woman? This isn't the story of weak men. This is the verdict handed down to those who were too honest, too generous, too convinced that love could heal all wounds. But the truth is far more brutal. Not all dangerous women scream at you or throw objects across the room. No. The ones who truly destroy men often arrive disguised as angels, saviors even. They don't rip you apart with violence. They plant seeds of doubt, guilt, and self-blame deep inside your mind until you begin to self-destruct from within. And if you think I'm exaggerating, stay with me until the very last second, because what I'm about to share will make you realize your life has already been, or is right now, being invaded, occupied, and reshaped from the inside out in ways you never even saw coming. The modern man grows up in a society that tells him love is salvation, that patience and forgiveness will make him a good guy. But do you see the paradox? That very label good guy turns him into the perfect prey for women who operate through the unconscious shadow. Sigmund Freud once said, "We are governed by what we refuse to face." And in love, men often refuse to face the shadow inside the woman they adore until that shadow swallows them whole. One of the most dangerous traps I've seen repeated again and again in men's lives is the victim performance. You meet a woman and she opens up about her tragic childhood, her betrayals, the heartbreaks no one ever understood. Your heart, wired to be a protector, desperate to be the safe harbor, immediately switches to rescue mode. You think, if I'm good enough, I can heal her. But the moment you believe you're her savior, you've already agreed to be her sacrifice. Because here's the truth. Some women aren't looking for healing. They're looking for a funnel to dump their pain into while draining the life force of someone else. Carl Jung called this projection. She doesn't recognize her own selfishness, her own insecurity, her own emptiness, so she places it on you. Suddenly, you're selfish, emotionally unavailable, controlling even though you're not. Every conversation becomes a trial with you as the permanent defendant. And the cruel twist: the more you try to defend yourself, the more you confirm her accusations. Many men I've spoken with describe it like being hacked from the inside, and that's exactly what it is. It's a psychological matrix. Once you step in, you're no longer dealing with reality, you're dealing with her distorted mirror of who you are. Men don't leave right away because they mistake this suffering for proof of deep love. That is the hook. The pain itself becomes the chain that keeps you bound. And here's a truth most won't dare admit. Not every woman who tells you her tragic story is a real victim. Some may have experienced genuine pain, but they've weaponized that pain. What Aristotle called reenacted tragedy, the same old script replayed again and again, where you're not the lover, but just the stand-in actor in her endless failed therapy session. Have you noticed how drained you feel after helping a woman like this? That's because you're not helping. You're being consumed. It's like pouring water into a bottomless well. The more you give, the more you're emptied, while the well never fills. But the real danger isn't just being drained. It's that you become addicted to being needed. You confuse dependency with love. That's the moment you lose the boundaries of your own self. And trust me, when a man loses his boundaries, he loses his soul. So why is this addiction to being needed more powerful than sex itself? Why does it turn even intelligent men into obedient puppets? Let me show you in the next part. There's a paradox. The more intelligent, educated, and self-assured a man is, the easier it is for him to fall into the traps of subtle women. Why? Because he believes his logic will protect him. But the attack never comes through logic, it comes through the unconscious. And as Carl Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The next mechanism of destruction is the perfect disguise. She crafts a flawless mask, gentle, intelligent, endlessly empathetic. Everyone adores her. Your friends say, "Man, you're lucky. She's amazing." Your parents admire her. Your colleagues praise her. Slowly you begin to doubt your own suffering. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe the problem is me. That's the exact moment she has seized control of your mind. In private, the mask falls. She becomes the critic, the controller, the manipulator. But whenever you try to voice your pain, you're surrounded by a wall of denial. She's wonderful. You must be exaggerating. This is what psychology calls social gaslighting, when your entire environment is used to deny your reality. Even worse, you become complicit, because you're forced to maintain the illusion of the perfect couple. You smile in photos, you post the sweet captions, you play the part at dinners and parties. And each time you do, you slice off another piece of your truth until you no longer recognize yourself. Do you remember Nietzsche's warning? The man who wears a mask will eventually forget his own face. That's the true tragedy here. The problem isn't just that she wears a mask, it's that you're forced to wear one too until your authentic self fades into a role scripted for someone else's show. I've met men who, after years, finally woke up to realize they had no hobbies left, no old friends, no authentic joy. Their lives revolved around keeping the peace, maintaining the image, preserving the relationship. But what exactly are you preserving if all you're holding on to is a gilded cage? That's the cruelty of the masked woman. She doesn't just invade your private space. She colonizes your social world. She isolates you in silence while everyone else applauds her perfection. And the deadliest part, you soon lose the ability to tell what's real and what's false. And when a man no longer trusts his own perception, he has lost everything. So how can you recognize this early before it's too late? Listen closely, because in the next part, I'll show you the deepest mechanism of all where peace itself is turned into a storm of chaos. Have you ever wondered why some relationships feel like endless battlegrounds, where arguments, tension, and crises never stop until you can't even remember the last time you had a quiet afternoon? That's not an accident. That's the signature of a woman I call the chaos generator. These women carry so much inner turbulence that calmness feels suffocating to them. Peace is not safety, it's a threat. So they create drama as a way to breathe. A simple text you didn't answer immediately becomes an interrogation. A gentle suggestion turns into a cold war that lasts for days. A tiny misunderstanding explodes into a full-scale storm. And the cruel part? You're dragged into every single battle, forced to fix, apologize, and extinguish fires until you're drained dry. Psychology calls this intensity mistaken for intimacy. They confuse high drama with deep connection. They believe that if there are no tears, no shouting, no chaos, then the love isn't real. And you stuck in that storm start to believe it too. That's how a trauma bond is formed, a psychological chain that keeps you hooked even while you're being destroyed. Think of it like a violent video game you never signed up to play. But every time you survive a level of chaos, you receive a small reward, a smile, a hug, a night of passion. And you mistake that reward as proof of love. In reality, it's just a strategy, intermittent reinforcement, the same system that makes gambling more addictive than money itself. Here's the brutal truth: if you keep thinking love has to burn with fire, you'll get burned alive. Real love doesn't consume you, it expands you. Peace is not boredom, it is the foundation of a man's strength. But the chaos generator will never allow peace. She turns you into a full-time firefighter, always on red alert. And when you live in that constant state, your nervous system collapses, your testosterone drops, your will to live erodes. A man trapped in this cycle won't have any strength left to face the battles of the outside world because he's already been exhausted inside his own home. If you're starting to recognize this pattern in your own story, don't look away. Because in the next part, I'll show you an even more insidious mechanism. Not one that burns you quickly, but one that slowly erases your very identity until you can no longer remember who you are. There are relationships where the man isn't being yelled at, isn't being hit, and there's no daily chaos. Instead, he slowly disappears piece by piece like water dripping on stone until it wears the rock down. This is the work of the identity thief. She doesn't need to scream in your face. All it takes is a casual line, "I don't like those friends of yours, they're not good for you," and suddenly you see them less. Another time, "Why are you so into that hobby?" It's useless, and little by little you abandon what you love. A few years pass and you look back, your friends are gone, your passions erased, every trace of individuality replaced with a version of you tailored to her insecurities. Psychology calls this selective reinforcement. She rewards you with affection, warmth, or approval when you act according to her desires. But when you express your authentic self, she punishes you with silence, guilt, or emotional withdrawal. Slowly, you're trained like an animal in a cage until you only move within the lines she draws. The terrifying part is the slowness. It doesn't happen overnight. It's erosion bit by bit disguised as sacrifice for love. You tell yourself every relationship requires compromise. But this isn't compromise. This is erasure. Imagine a tree having its branches cut away one by one. At first it still stands strong, but one day you look again and realize it's nothing but a bare trunk stripped of life. That's you, hollowed out, reshaped, a shadow of who you once were. The identity thief often disguises her control as help. She'll say, "I just want you to be the best version of yourself." But be careful. The best version she wants isn't your truest self. It's simply the easiest version for her to control. Aristotle once wrote, "The man who lives only for others ceases to live nobly for himself." And that's the tragedy. When you lose your identity, you have nothing left to give to the world. You become an empty vessel, compliant, obedient, safe, but no longer alive. I've seen men wake up after 5-10 years in relationships like this, staring into the mirror, but no longer recognizing the eyes staring back. Some turn to alcohol, some to affairs, some collapse into depression, but they all share the same fate. They are no longer themselves. Do you see it now? Silent cuts can be more devastating than a visible knife. An identity thief doesn't need to kill you in one night. She just needs to chip away at you every single day until you erase yourself. So the question remains, how does a man break free from all of this? How does he protect his soul, his power, and his authentic self? Stay with me, because in the final part, I'll give you the only answer that can save you from this abyss. You see, these mechanisms aren't rare. They don't just live in psychology books or in some distant therapist's office. They are woven into everyday life, into the relationships you've lived or the man sitting next to you on the subway has lived. Your pain wasn't random. It was the cost of placing your trust, your heart, in the wrong hands. But listen carefully. This pain doesn't have to be your death. It can be your rebirth. Nietzsche once wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Your why was never to become someone's shadow, never to be the dumping ground for another's insecurity, never to live a life on loan. Your reason is to stand tall, to face the world head-on, and to live as a man you yourself respect. Yes, you may feel alone, but solitude in truth is stronger than companionship built on lies. Yes, you may feel loss, But losing the false self is only the beginning of reclaiming the true self. And yes, you may feel fear, but fear is the sign you're standing on the threshold of awakening. So what's your next step? Simple. Don't let this message die inside your own ears. If you feel awakened, become a fire starter. Share this with another man who's trapped in the maze, so he knows he isn't crazy, broken, or weak. He's simply been hijacked. Subscribe to this channel, not as a fan. I don't need fans. I need brothers in arms. Men who know the truth, who stare into the darkness without flinching, who refuse to compromise with the destruction of their spirit. If you've stayed with me until now, welcome. You've chosen to stand with strength, with clarity. And from this moment forward, you are no longer alone.